We are now in day 5 of round 3 in the Phoenix Festival tournament, with the final group of matches to go over in each category. As always, use the links in the description below to go to the Google Forms and vote for who you think would win in each match and give your reasoning as to why. Whether weapon, semblance, experience advantage, etc., whatever your choice may be, a reason has to be given. Now, our first match of the day is Ozpin versus Winter Schnee in the Savannah and Ocean biomes. Now, Winter has the versatility over Ozpin, with her semblance of glyphs and her ability to manipulate momentum, as well as the potential to use the dust that she has stored in her blades. We're not exactly sure what dust that is, possibly fire, ice dust, maybe gravity dust to be able to manipulate momentum like Weiss does with her glyphs, but we just don't know. And her summoning on top of that, fighting against Ozpin, she has the versatility. But Ozpin has the experience, having lived through many different lifetimes, probably over 1,000 years, probably multiple thousands of years. So with that experience, combined with having seen Winter in battle before, having known Weiss while she attended Beacon Academy, and know the semblance of glyphs, he would probably be able to get a read on Winter fairly quickly, prevent her from summoning, prevent her from really being able to manipulate her momentum. And although Ozpin, we only saw him fight in Volume 3, and the speed that he showed was likely enhanced by magic to some degree, the speed that he displayed while inhabiting Oscar's body in Volume 5 was still very intense. And Ozpin, being, in that body for a lot longer, his own body that we knew him from in volumes 1 to 3, he would have a lot more speed just inherently, a lot more stamina, a lot more training, and the muscle memory from all of his previous lifetimes would have come back by that point, and he would be a lot more skilled. I think he would be able to overwhelm Winter without too much difficulty, but if Winter's able to use her momentum and the 2 blades that she fights with, she might be able to get a few hits in on Ozpin, but I think Ozpin wins more often than not against Winter. And then moving on to our second match of the day, we have Tok versus Arsalan Altain in the Mountain and Desert biomes. I'm really happy to see Arsalan make it so far in the tournament. I absolutely love her character, but she has no chance to win against Tok. Tok being a former member of Salem's Inner Circle, and the ferocity that she shows in battle, not to mention her semblance of invincibility for 60 seconds, Tok would be able to relentlessly attack Arsalan without having to care about defense at all, and Arsalan, she's a hand-to-hand combat fighter. She does have her weapon, which is a dagger whip that she can use to maneuver herself around the biomes, which fighting in the mountain biome she might be able to do to some extent, but Tok would be easily able to keep up with her and would overwhelm Arsalan fairly quickly. I'm sad to see Arsalan lose, but I see no chance of her winning in this fight. And then we get to the third fight, and kind of a similar situation, I feel, which is between Flint Cole and Adam Tauros in the Anti-Gravity and Forest biomes. Now, Flint, fighting with his trumpet and his semblance of killer quartet, he can deal a fair amount of damage with the sound waves and possibly dust waves of his trumpet. We have no confirmation on that, likely wind dust if any, but still, this wouldn't really give Adam a chance to charge up his semblance, but judging by the skill that we've seen Adam display throughout the volumes that we've seen him in, I don't think he'd need it. He would be able to dodge out of the way of Flint's trumpet blasts, get around him, and be able to end this fight fairly quickly. Just with the skill alone that he has wielding his Wilt and Blush, I think he would be able to overwhelm Flint fairly quickly and end this fight with just a few strikes at most. Now, he wouldn't be severing any limbs, but he would be breaking the aura fairly quickly. I would give this to Adam almost every single time. And then we get to our fourth fight, which is Mercury Black versus James Ironwood in the Ocean and Desert biomes. This one would be interesting. We don't know either of these two characters' semblances, and they are both fast fighters. I would argue that in close combat, Ironwood hits a little bit harder than Mercury, though Mercury with his metal legs, if he's able to land a kick on your head, it's still going to send you spinning. Now Ironwood, with his due process, the twin pistols that he has, I think has the advantage long range versus Mercury and his Teleria and the wind dust bullets that he has. Because with Ironwood, he's able to use the gravity dust to launch himself around and get spurts of momentum quicker than Mercury could. We did see Mercury able to launch himself into the air with Teleria, firing wind dust bullets from both heels and launch himself back up onto the stage when Yang knocked him off. So in theory, he could use that in a fight as well. I don't really think that would play much of a factor, but if Ironwood starts launching himself around, Mercury could start firing bullets at him, similar to how he did against Yang in Volume 3, and start setting up the wind dust barrage or tornado that would slam down on Ironwood. The problem would be actually hitting Ironwood, because as Mercury called it down and started raining it down on Ironwood, he could use the gravity dust bullets to launch himself out of the way, etc., and start firing other rounds at Mercury. I think Mercury is extremely skilled and would give Ironwood a lot of trouble, but I think Ironwood would come out the victor just because he has the long-range superiority very slightly with his due process versus Teleria, and close-range superiority when it came to overall strength. I think Ironwood is just a bit stronger, also has half of his body being metal, so a metal punch versus your head is still going to send you spinning, so I think Ironwood takes this, but let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'd be really curious to see who you think would win, Mercury or Ironwood. And of course, let me know through the voting below as well. And then we get to our fifth fight, which is Amber versus Emerald Sustrai in the ocean and urban biomes. Amber has a little chance at revenge against Emerald for putting her under the spell of hallucinations and allowing her maiden powers to be stolen in Volume 3. Now, this time, Emerald is fighting on her own. When Amber was unaware of Emerald, she was susceptible to Emerald's semblance, but this time she would be face to face with Emerald, and we're assuming Emerald's not activating her semblance before the match begins. So with her needing to focus to be able to use her semblance, I don't really know how well Emerald would be able to use it against Amber and get herself into the same situation. But fighting with her Thief's Respite, Emerald has the twin sickles that can extend on chains as well as the pistols, so she has close range, medium range, and long range capabilities, whereas Amber fights with a staff that has a fire dust crystal in one end and a wind dust crystal in the other. Fighting in the ocean and urban biomes, she might be able to create a tornado strong enough to lift a bit of debris from the urban and some of the water from the ocean and use that against Emerald, not to mention sending fire dust blasts at Emerald, but I think Emerald would be able to overwhelm Amber in a 1v1 fight when Amber is not using her maiden powers. Magic is forbidden in this fight, so Amber wouldn't be able to use it, and I think Emerald, with a hard-fought victory, would be able to win over Amber. Trying to keep it long range as much as possible, or medium range, being able to use the chain sickles, as they would be a lot to deal with. They would be coming at Amber pretty fast, and with one staff trying to block both of them, I feel like Amber would start taking hits here and there in the openings, and Emerald would be able to overwhelm her eventually. Unfortunately, we don't know much of Amber's training before she got the maiden powers. She was quoted as being an inexperienced maiden, but I think that's just because she didn't have much training with her actual magic. Not necessarily that she wasn't a huntress or didn't have any formal training beyond that, or training in general. We're not exactly sure, but I think Emerald would take this fight overall. And then we get to the last fight of the singles category today, which is Blake Belladonna versus Dougal in the ice and forest biomes. Now, with this one, in Volume 3, I would argue that they would be relatively equal in skill level. Dougal being the member of Team Indigo that fights with the staff that has a wind dust crystal in the tip and is able to make kind of tornadoes in the desert biome. Now, in the ice and forest biome, probably wouldn't be able to manipulate much other than maybe a few ice shards or branches, but Blake, after Volume 3, has had a lot of training, fighting against the White Fang through Volumes 4 and 5, and also fighting her way to Atlas in Volumes 6 and 7, training from the Aesops, etc. So Blake has just advanced so far beyond Dew that with all of her capabilities now with Gamble Shroud, Gamble Shroud hasn't really evolved that much in the capabilities that it has, but we also know Blake's semblance of Shadow, being able to create afterimage clones, and Blake would just be able to deal with Dew fairly easily, and Blake would win this one in the end. And then we move on to the doubles match of the day. The winner of this match will move on to the grand finals in the doubles category in the Phoenix Festival tournament. We have Cinderfall and James Ironwood versus Sienna Khan and Mei Zedong in the lava and geyser biomes. Now, when it comes to the cumulative skill level on each of the teams, Cinder and Ironwood definitely have that advantage. Mei and Sienna definitely have a good cohesion when it comes to their abilities, with Mei being a sniper and Sienna being a very close combat fighter, needing to be close to opponents to activate her semblance of grudge, increase her own power, but with Cinder and Ironwood having the maneuverability that they do, Cinder just being a quick fighter and Ironwood being able to launch himself around with his due process, the gravity dust bullets, I think he would be able to easily sneak up on Mei, or at least close the distance between them very quickly and knock Mei out of the fight fairly quickly, making this a 2 versus 1 Ironwood and Cinder versus Sienna, and Unfortunately for Sienna, I don't see her standing much of a chance 1 versus 2, especially against Cinder and Ironwood. Now Cinder wouldn't be using any of her maiden powers, just her Midnight and her Scorching Caress, her Semblance, but even with just that, I think she would easily be able to overwhelm Sienna, let alone fighting alongside Ironwood. Now if Cinder versus Sienna happened 1v1, that would be a lot closer of a fight and Sienna might win, but I think Cinder could pull out the win in that category, and then Ironwood fighting alongside Cinder, I think they would just be able to overwhelm Sienna and May, and I think Cinder and Ironwood will win this fight and move on to the grand finals. But then moving on to our teams matches of the day, we have Team Witch versus Team Juniper. Team Witch consisting of Arthur Watts, Tyrion Callows, Cinderfall, and Hazel Reinhardt, and of course Team Juniper consisting of Jean Arc, Nora Valkyrie, Pyrrha Nikos, and Lai Ren. They are fighting in the Geyser and Ocean biomes. Now Team Juniper, 3 of the members, Jean, Nora, and Ren, have gotten a lot more training up till Volume 7, and Pyrrha, being one of the more skilled characters that we have seen in the entirety of Volumes 1 to 3, definitely can hold her own, except Team Juniper is not skilled enough to take on the entirety of Salem's inner circle at this point, as all of them are powerhouses in and of themselves. Cinder a lot less, considering she's not using her maiden powers, and Arthur not really being much of a close combat fighter or fighter in general. He can still hold his own as he did against Ironwood in Volume 7, but with Hazel and Tyrion being the immense powerhouses that they are, would be able to deal with them, pretty much just the 2 of them, as Tyrion was able to deal with Jean, Ren, Nora, and RWBY in Volume 4 and still have enough strength and stamina left over to fight Crow 1 versus 1 after that. So I think Team Witch just outclasses Team Juniper and would be able to take them out. Pyrrha would give them a lot of trouble with her semblance of polarity, especially with Jean boosting it. Tyrion with the Queen's Servants would get launched backwards, but Hazel doesn't have any metal on him. So he would be able to just charge through that and be able to knock probably Jean out very quickly and then deal with Pyrrha, and Pyrrha would have a hard time dealing with Hazel. And especially once Jean is knocked out and someone is just keeping Pyrrha occupied so she can't use her semblance of polarity, Tyrion could keep up with her speed. I would argue Hazel probably wouldn't be able to land a hit against Pyrrha if it was 1 versus 1, but with the rest of Team Witch, with Cinder there, with Tyrion there, and Watts being able to manipulate the biomes and control where things were happening, I mean, fighting in the geyser biome, he'd be able to, at the very least, manipulate where the geysers were launching, and on top of that, also be able to switch the biomes to whatever he wanted if he had the opportunity to do so. So I think that Team Witch just outclasses Team Juniper and would win this fight overall. And then our last match of the day is Team Ambit, that is Adam's White Fang, consisting of Adam Tauros, Banesaw, Yuma, and Trifa, fighting against Team Stark. Of course, Summer Rose, Tai Yang, Raven Bronwyn, and Crow Bronwyn. Now, Team Stark, I think, pretty much outclasses Team Ambit. Adam Tauros would be able to hold his own against one of the members of Team Stark for a decent amount of time. We are having to make assumptions about Summer Rose and Tai Yang, considering we don't know their semblances or their weapons. We have a general idea of their fighting styles, maybe, considering Tai Yang likely taught Yang how to fight, but beyond that, Summer we can assume is a speed fighter, Tai Yang is a close combat fighter, and we're just going to assume they're a notch below Crow and Raven. But Crow and Raven could easily take out all of Team Ambit on their own. I'm not going to lie about that, because, like, unfortunately, Banesaw, Yuma, and Trifa, although skilled members of the White Fang, are nowhere near the level of Crow and Raven. Adam could hold his own against one of them, maybe, but both of them, probably not, and I think Team Stark would just take this fairly easily. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the Phoenix Festival Tournament overall. Make sure you use the links in the description below to go and vote for who you think would win. But if you want to keep up with all of the happenings in the Phoenix Festival Tournament and the RWBY content on this channel, make sure to subscribe, join the Guild of the Eternal Flame, tweet me at PhoenixKnight7, join our Discord server, also linked in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.